What's going on, everyone? Scott here. Welcome back to the channel. So we are back on the beaches of paradise for episode 2. Like the different format change, overall new vibe, new editing styles, a bunch of new stuff with Bachelor in Paradise this year. Really liked it in episode 1, so we're going to jump in here to episode 2. We have a couple connections forming and even a few love triangles possibly beginning to take shape in episode 1 and seems like in the previews for possibly episode 2 and here moving forward. But before we do jump in, if you could just hit that like and subscribe button down there. We'll have more Bachelor in Paradise content on the channel all summer long, so just make sure you subscribe so you don't miss a video. So, new intro as well, have the still same catchy song, so we're good there. But the morning after the rose ceremony, Zoe feels that Brian was giving her kind of the cold shoulder, didn't really say good morning to her or show any effort of talking to her from at least what we've seen. Didn't really say hi to her, really kind of acting weird, as I said. But every one of the guys seems pretty open to new arrivals that they're assuming are coming today since it is still so early in the process. But assuming that the guys have the roses as well and assuming new girls will be coming in to the resort, I guess, here today. Spencer is pretty happy with things with Jess, and Justin says it would take a lot not to be still pursuing Lexi, and things are good with where he is at with her. Brian says that Zoe is a little clingy, and I mean, unless we're missing stuff, I'm not sure what the guy is talking about. Personally, just from what we've seen on the TV. But we head to the beach, and side note, someone please show my guy Spencer how to throw a football. But Parisa from Grant's season shows up on a jet ski, as well as Allie Joe from Grant's season, straight out of Jersey, shows up on the beaches of paradise. Zoe was not super thrilled because her and Allie Joe did kind of have a splat on Grant's season. But Jesse comes down to the beach, welcoming in Parisa and Allie Joe, provides date cards for each of them as well. Zoe tells Allie Joe and Parisa as they kind of sit down and catch up. You'd think maybe to bury the hatchet, but basically tells them not to take her man Brian. Parisa is like, of course, I kind of wanted to kick the tires on Brian, see if there was something there. Brian tells her that he doesn't know if he felt that connection or with Zoe, basically talking about as he's talking to Parisa. It doesn't really know if that is his person yet. Flashback 24 hours ago, he was definitely doing everything possible to make sure to get that rose and that he was here another day and making it seem like that it was possibly his person in terms of Zoe. But Ellie Jo says that she's physically attracted to Dale. Dale seems to reciprocate that feeling, telling her she's beautiful, all this stuff. Wells and Hannah show up for the first ever chemistry test, and this was something new that we were going to be seeing on this season. And I say I like the idea of this. This one kind of a little different, but the first test is to see if there's a spark kissing someone other than your current connection, and you kind of have to swipe and choose yes if you want to kiss that person. If you match, you'll go down the beach to the kissing booth and get to kiss, and you don't have to tell anyone as well. It's all private and whatever. So as well said, you don't have to tell anyone, but come on, it's paradise. We know people are going to talk. And at first I thought it was just Jeremy basically choosing everyone, but no, it was a handful of guys that seemed like they were just choosing everyone. Besides Spencer and Justin, only chose Jess and Lexi, their current connections as well. But up first is Jonathan for some tonsil hockey, as well says. Alex is there, and Jonathan says it's awkward, as all of their interactions are, but they both say it's a good kiss and want to, continue exploring their connection. Allie Joe shows up for Jonathan, as well as Parisa, Bailey, Alex and Jonathan. Jonathan says still had the best kiss, but Bailey was a close second. Brian is up next, and Zoe is first up. She's confused because there's more passion than any of their other kisses that they've shared so far this season. Parisa comes in next, and Brian feels kind of a spark. Jess only has eyes for Spencer. They only choose each other, as we kind of hinted at earlier. Jeremy is up next, has Bailey come in. He actually chose 4 other women, but no one else chose him as well, so just him and Bailey. Justin only chose Lexi. She feels a little uncomfortable, and he's still questioning, or she's still questioning, should I say, if he is over Susie. Dale has Alex, Kat, Allie Joe, and Zoe come in for him. Zoe pulls Brian for a chat and just asks, what's going on? You didn't even say hi to me this morning. He says that, doesn't want to overanalyze things. It's like, I was just grabbing coffee and breakfast. That's kind of important. Yeah, most important meal of the day, I guess, but can at least say hi to the person who just kind of saved you, made sure you were still there to grab that coffee and breakfast in paradise. But anywho, Zoe tells Brian, just tell me if you have another connection that you're, trying to pursue or whatever. I'd prefer it not be Parisa, but you know that is the cue for Parisa to show up. She asks Brian to go on the date. Obviously accepts. Ellie Joe pulls Jonathan for a chat from Alex. She talks to Dale as well. Both guys were open to going on a date, and she decides to ask Jonathan. A double-ish date, I guess you can kind of say. Wells is there bartending, but it's going to be a game night. They play some games together, arm wrestle. They get to chat at the end as well. Seems like they both sets of couples had a good time, but definitely seemed like Brian and Parisa definitely had a, stronger connection of the two on the date. Back at the resort, another lady shows up, and it's Jill. She is back on the beaches of Paradise. Jill and Justin catch up from being together on season 8. Gives her kind of the lay of the land so far. Lexi pulls Justin for a chat, and Lexi tells Justin that she doesn't want to move forward romantically due to his ex, Susie, obviously, and her that's been kind of her worry, so far at the beginning of this season is, in her past, she says that she was with someone who wasn't over their ex and, was still in communication and is just kind of uncomfortable. It just kind of wants to take a step back from this. Justin says that, he's shown her how serious he is and how intentional he's been with only choosing to pursue her. Lexi says that she just needs to take a breather, to become more comfortable moving forward. Basically, also giving each other the freedom to talk to other people, don't want to hold each other back. But Justin isn't really interested in that. He's like, I'm at a point in my life where I'm just like, I only have eyes for, this person. I'm interested in this person, so I'm going to pursue this person and not about jumping around all these other connections. And especially since this isn't Justin's first time around the Paradise block, if you will. But perfect timing for Susie to come walking in the door. Bachelor producers never fail, but pretty awkward to say the least. Jill catches Susie up on everything. Jeremy actually pulls Susie for a chat, as Jeremy tells her that she was one of the names that he had kind of coming in that he would definitely be interested in, getting to explore. But the group returns from the date. Brian is still disconnected from Zoe. She's feeling icky about it. Parisa and Brian actually go for a little late night swim, and Zoe is not amused, to say the least. But Zoe pulls Dale to chat, see if there's anything still there. They've kind of kicked the tires around, but Dale tells Zoe that Kat is his focus right now. Justin and Susie talk about Justin's couple of days here before her showing up. Last time they saw each other was actually they were kind of exchanging stuff, spare keys and whatnot. But they do have an interesting chat and, civil chat. They were friends first before they were in a relationship. So I think there's that mutual respect still there. And it's evident between, the two of them, and they both still care about each other. But Susie ends up tearing up Justin as well. And she says that she's never had what she had with Justin. But she is questioning if she made a mistake coming to Paradise. The next morning, more weirdness between Brian and Zoe. Jonathan tells Alex that he wished he got to take her on a date yesterday. Says that he thinks her and Alex are still each other's number one. Alex says that she feels like she's going to get Jonathan's rose, but in the back of her head, she's still like, why don't I feel like that gravitational pull, like that you constantly want to be, touching, feeling, and, all of that, physical stuff with Jonathan just yet. Wells agrees and doesn't know if he sees the romantic connection between them two, but he says, what do I know? I've only been doing this for 8 years. And yeah, I agree, but sometimes, if they're starting out as friends like that, like maybe it's a little awkward if they're trying to, just establish that friendship and trying to jump into that realm, right now. Maybe that's why it's a little awkward. So, maybe give it a couple more days if they can continue this connection, and maybe that won't be there and something more can, blossom from that relationship. Jesse is here with the date card for Susie and Jill. Susie is going on a water date. Jill is going to the VIP suite. The second rose ceremony is also going to be that night. 4 women are going to be going home. Brian pulls Zoe to clear the air of sorts, and it does not do a good job of clearing the air by any means. He tells her that him and Parisa have more in common, kind of, is kind of hinting at, hey, this, the direction that he's, choosing to pursue, and a pretty back and forth argument ensues, and safe to say it is over between Zoe and Brian. Susie and Lexi actually chat, and Susie reassures her that both Justin and her are fully healed, and she makes sure that Lexi knows that, she's closed that chapter. Ellie Joe talks to Dale to let him know that she's interested, and, they started kissing, and then Kat goes running by into the ocean to make sure that she's still in Dale's sightline. But Jill pulls Jonathan, and he says that he'd be open to go on a date. Susie talks to Jeremy and asks him to go on the date, and he accepts. Jeremy does go talk to Bailey, and they both seem okay about it. And Bailey is still confident in their relationship either way, and knows that he'll just go have a good time. And what happens happens basically. And Susie and Jeremy go jet skiing. Jill asks Jonathan to go on the date back at the resort. Jonathan accepts, but he apparently already told Alex that he might be going on the date, but that it would be more of a friendly vibe. Jeremy tells Susie that I wouldn't have picked another person to do this date with. Sure, Bailey would love to hear that with how confident she is back at the resort. As I said, she is very confident at the resort with Jeremy, and, jump frame back to Jeremy and Susie getting fairly comfy on the little beach bed thing. Jonathan and Jill go on their date, and she just wants to see if there's a window there and if she can possibly slip through it with Jonathan. They make some drinks, they play Twister, they do end up kissing, but at the end of the day, still seems fairly platonic friend vibe between them two. Cocktail party number 2 for Bachelor in Paradise. Parisa makes a scenario game for Brian to play. See how that goes. Jeremy tells Bailey that he's nervous because he really does like her, but he did have a good time on the date with Susie. Justin and Lexi talk after a rough day yesterday, but she feels a lot better after talking to Susie, and they're looking to move on from the Susie situation of it all and look to progress their relationship. And they seem to have a good breakthrough in that in order to move forward. Jonathan expresses to Jill that he's worried about Alex if there's something they are not there, I guess you could say, with them, having that kind of awkwardness, trying to move in that romantic area, move that part of the relationship forward. But as I said, I think they're building that good foundation, and just give it a little more time. If they stay with their connection together, move it forward a little more, I think it can get there. Ellie Joe pulls Dale for another chat after Dale just told Kat he didn't need to talk to anyone. He tells her that he wants more time with her, so maybe Dale isn't as, locked in on Kat as it might seem. But Justin talks with Susie, checking in, see how she's doing. They do have a good conversation. Justin wants her to find her person and her to get some more time to explore with Jeremy. And that's kind of what Jeremy was, hinting at too. Like, hey, I really like both of these women and just wish that I could give both of them a rose to, explore more of the connection with. You really only had 24 hours with Susie. You've had this connection from the beginning with Bailey. So I get that, and Justin sees that, and we see him kind of perplexed, and it's like, is it just because it's such a weird situation, you feel bad because, your ex comes in and you both still have a mutual respect for each other and just want that person and Susie to, find her person, which he does want that. He expresses that, but definitely something weird with his reactions from that. We head to the rose ceremony. Spencer gives his rose to Jess. Dale gives his rose to Kat. Then Jeremy's up next, gives his rose to Bailey, and we're like, at this point, I'm kind of taking a pause in my head, wait, why isn't Justin going already? That seems like an obvious. He's only had a connection with Lexi. So we keep going. Brian gives his rose to Parisa. Jonathan does give his rose to Alex. Justin is up last, and he gives his rose to Susie. Everyone is no one moves for a minute. Jaws are on the floor. Susie walks up and she's like, what are you doing? And she's like, I can't accept this. She's just trying to give it to her. Clearly not as a romantic thing, but just as a mutual respect friend. Maybe in the back of his head, he was he could tell Lexi and him, possibly moved past this area, but, was worried that it, possibly they weren't going to be able to get past that and, move forward. And in his head, he just wanted to do something nice for his ex and Susie, who he, has, said that, and you can tell that they still have that respect and love for each other. So I wanted to do that. Susie's like, I can't accept it. And, they both kind of walk back into line. Then at the respective sides of the rose ceremony, and then give it a beat. Justin walks off, and then that's when everything kind of starts going haywire, if you will. Susie, like all the girls are kind of like talking, and Susie's like, I know I need to go. I think she said like I need to go check on him. Like I know he's just trying to do the right thing, but like because Susie was even telling her like just give your rose to Lexi. Like that's where your connection is. Like you said, that's your only connection here. And then Susie walks off, and then I love when shows doing this. I love that Bachelor in Paradise is kind of moving towards this, and seeing this, we see the producer, camera operator, they're sprinting to go after Justin and Susie. We're seeing that, and then everyone's kind of still like just standing there, like, what is going on? Lexi walks off. The producer trying to tell her like, no, stop, and she's like, no, I'm good. I'm not just gonna stand here. I'm just ready to go home. And that wraps it up for tonight. Because if you don't remember, we get another episode tomorrow on Tuesday night. And a lot to still unpack from this rose ceremony. So gonna finish that up. It looks like Jesse heads off as well, so it looks like we're gonna have a Justin and Jesse conversation. I'm assuming a Justin and Susie conversation and a resolution to that. If I'm guessing, I'm assuming they're both just gonna go home. Probably ends up being too awkward across the board. I don't imagine Lexi would even accept a rose if Justin was like, I wanted to give it to you, but I wanted to do this, good deed for, whatever. In my head, I thought, maybe he was like, well, I want to go off. I want to give her this opportunity, but I would like to explore this with Lexi. But it's like, when you look at it from Lexi's perspective too, it's like, why do I want to be a second choice, or why are you throwing away our opportunity to explore our connection here on this show for your ex, even if it is out of, respect or, whatever. So I think that door's closed now. If I had to guess, I imagine both Justin and Susie are both going to go home. And I have to imagine that, obviously Lexi will go home. Seems like Zoe will go home as well. Allie, Joe, and Jill, I believe, will be the group that will be going home. So now I'm curious what the numbers will then look like if they do anything with that rose, if they possibly give it to someone to stay on the beaches of paradise and continue to explore. I don't know how we go about that, but I'm interested to see how that plays out. And then we get the golden Bachelor and Bachelorette showing up tomorrow night as well. So definitely can't wait to see that. So definitely a jam-packed episode 2 that definitely picked up there at the end. The last 15 or so minutes seemed like it was going to be, that there was going to be a couple decisions that, they were kind of left up in the air. Like, oh, is Dale possibly thinking about choosing Allie, Joe, Jeremy? Jeremy, it seemed like was going to be the big decision between Bailey and Susie. Brian, we knew where his was going. Spencer, we knew where his was going. Jonathan, the possibility of choosing Jill, but we knew that his rose was probably going to Alex. And then Justin, it was like, oh yeah, this is going to Lexi. So really, it seemed like the only big question was where Jeremy's rose was going to go. But things changed fairly quickly here, as they did tonight. So anyway, as I said, I'll say it again, as I said last week, I love the vibe, the look of the new seasons of Paradise, and how they have everything kind of laid out and the different format they're going with. So all good things so far, in my opinion, for Bachelor in Paradise after 2 episodes. But we will be back tomorrow night for another episode of Bachelor in Paradise, and we will be here to recap it. So just make sure to subscribe. But that'll do it for this one. Thank you all so much for watching. We'll see you in the next one. Peace out.